not your fault.
I know.
It's not your fault.
I know.
No, you don't. It's not your fault.
I know.
It's not your fault. Right? It's not your fault.
Bei Diktaten
It's not your fault.
wirken wir nicht mit.
Don't fuck with me.
Sie mögen ein Diktat als
not your
Diktat
fault.
und aufoktroyieren.
Don't fuck with me, all right? Don't fuck with me, Sean.
Meine
It's not
Arbeit
your fault.
für richtig hältst. Ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gibst du jetzt eine Stimme ab? Wenn ja, dann leg für mich ein, so wie ich für dich
Greetings, everyone.
Hello there.
Hello.
Welcome.
It's another
Spine
episode
Crack.
Huh?
It's another episode of the Spine Crackers podcast.
That's right, motherfuckers. Welcome.
Here we are.
It's Gabe, me.
Matt.
And Paul.
And together, we comprise Spine Crackers LLC.
I couldn't think of a funny Voltron joke in that short amount of time.
Yeah, the joke would just be that we are Voltron, though.
Well, yeah,
right?
but it would be, I don't know, I was trying to think of a funny word play, like,
Uh-huh.
I was just going to say, like, white Voltron or something.
Well, listen,
You can
that
think of
kind
a
of
good
rolls.
one and just chat it to us in a half hour.
Yeah, I will. You know, I
It
will.
works. It works with the theme a little bit.
I think it does, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do make a great, amazing team, and
We do.
yeah. So
Let's do some
Sorry,
self-affirmations.
got the giggles.
Yeah,
a little bit of the
I know.
giggles right
Well,
now. I don't know why.
Well, I know exactly why.
Well,
It's
we
'cause
know
were
why.
Literally, like cracking up before we started recording this. We need some positive self-talk. We're all
Yeah.
good and smart and nice people.
Yeah.
I would
Warts
say
and
so.
all.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I had a giant wart in the bottom of my foot, and it had to be frozen off.
I had like 3 of those.
Yeah.
It was actually really cool.
It's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool, but like it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't really like work for me.
I had to have multiple sessions.
Yeah, and then when I was an adult, I had a couple, and I had to buy. Like you can buy do it at home kits for wart freezing now.
I didn't know that.
Actually, that kind of pertains to the word I chose as my Scrabble word.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Well, don't
weirdly
spoil
enough.
it. Don't spoil it. But remember that, and then bring it back at the end.
The smarter listeners may have a guess. And isn't that a fun game to play with in your minds while we continue to discuss today's book?
We're just teasing you.
Yeah. Sexually.
Oh God.
Here
Here we
fits
go.
in the theme. That's
Here
not
maybe.
Here we
harassment.
go.
Depending on whether or not that's what maybe that's been the case the whole time, every episode you've listened to.
Here we go, people.
Devoutly.
It's because our ASMR voices.
That's right. This is Paul's Pick.
This music is distracting. I don't know. It's like way
That was-
louder
You can-
for me.
You can cut it.
Yeah.
What have
We
you
got the
done?
good
What have
shit
you
in.
chosen?
Oh, I chose The Appointment by Katharina Volckmer.
How are you guys saying it in your head?
Katharina.
Katharina? I was saying with a hard T.
Yeah, Katharina Volckmer.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I said.
You said
Katharina?
You said yeah.
Yeah.
Catherine
wrong,
Volman.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
This is a relatively newer novel taking
Published in
debut.
2020. Yeah, debut
Yeah.
novel
Yes.
published in 2020. She's a German author who's, I guess, living in London. Sort of like
Millennial.
sort of like the character in the book. Yeah, she was born the same year as me.
Yeah, crazy. That's part of the reason why I chose it. I wanted to pick something that was. I mean, we've only had like one other millennial author on the show, and I just
Let's get
wanted.
that
Sometimes
millennial
I just
fiction
like
in.
to.
Yeah,
I want to get it in. I want to give people chances. So that was
Okay.
kind of my off-the-shelf pick for
I
this
love that.
one, and to maybe troll Matt a little bit.
Did this just catch your eye in the bookstore, or were you like did a little prior research? And
well,
were like, this is what I want.
Why is it a troll for Matt?
Yeah. First of
I
all,
just-
yeah. Actually,
You
what
guys,
the hell?
you guys are such. Your trolling of each other is so simple. Old book, troll Paul. New book, troll Matt.
That's basically all it is.
Is that really?
Yeah.
That is the dynamic. That is
Yeah.
all it is.
Oh, this book was written last year. I'm gonna troll Matt with it. Yeah, that's basically all it is.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, but it's pretty base. Like base,
No, I love
like,
David Diop book, so disproven.
True.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. But I'm just sticking to my guns. And sometimes simple is best.
Yeah.
But no, the story of me finding it is I saw it on one of my favorite artists' Instagram stories. They just had it in their story, and they were like, "This is my favorite book ever." And I was like, "Well, I like
Damn.
your art, and I'll give it a shot." So that's
You want
basically.
to shout out the artist at all?
I do, but I don't remember who it was.
Nice.
Okay, that's the only acceptable way.
Follow
not
a lot
to
of
say it.
people. I just don't know. I can't remember.
Also, Paul's an artist and has an Instagram. Do you want to shout out your own art Instagram, Paul?
Yeah, plug something, dude.
I will at some point. I'm not right now.
Just right now is a great opportunity. to do it.
Because
Yes,
we're
there would
literally
be a good
talking about
option.
art Instagram.
No,
and we're
if
and
you
we're
subscribe to our
ask-
Patreon and our
asking you
Discord,
about it.
I
Discard?
will tell the Discordians.
All right.
The Discardians.
That ask hot out.
All right, I guess that's behind a paywall. That Paul is trying to be a public figure and it's behind a paywall.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best strategy for you, Paul, but it's
Yeah.
your life. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe I want my life to be separated into compartments.
Yeah,
That's hey,
Yeah.
a lot of people do that.
that's fine.
Yeah.
This character did it, I guess, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
okay.
trying so hard
in
to
what
say.
way?
So speaking of this speaking of this character, yeah, we got to rein ourselves in here. We got to put ourselves in a
Yeah,
pen.
we're being bad right now.
Hey, we're being naughty.
But yeah, speaking of this character, what I guess we should talk about what the book's about. I will just say, it's not really. There's many opportunities that we probably should have done something like this in the past, but for whatever reason, I feel obligated to say that from this point out, there's going to be, I don't know, graphic discussions of the Holocaust and potential anti-Semitism and various sorts of perversions related there too, and
Sex and
it called
Hitler
that
are going to be
we're trying to do?
mixed.
yeah, we're gonna be talking about sex and transgressive sex and Hitler, and they're gonna be talked about together. So if that's whatever.
This is what you call a trigger warning. Classic.
Yeah, there you go.
Classic.
trigger warning.
Great, that's a great job, Gabe.
I do think we should probably talk about maybe in the Patreon this because I feel like this is probably the first book that we've read that like counts as one of the as like a transgressive fiction, which who knows what that category means. But
Yeah.
that
I
might be.
have no idea what that means.
I know. Well, maybe we should talk about it later. Anyway, what's this
Okay.
book about, Paul?
Yeah, give us the rundown.
This book, it's like a stream of consciousness book. No chapter breaks, just like one long stream of the main character who is unnamed, just kind of talking to her gynecologist while she's on the, what would you call it, the not operating table, but like
Well, gynecologist
Well, yeah,
is a big question mark
It's-
there
it's-
with that. I don't think so.
It's a sort of bait and switch, I think. But anyway, that maybe
I
spoilers.
think it's a gynecologist for sure.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
It's not.
Okay, it is, but
It's not, it's not. All right, fine. Fuck it. Spoilers. She's getting a consultation for gender transition surgery.
She's getting a phalloplasty.
from a
and-
gynecologist though, right?
That's not the right term. I don't know what the right term
okay,
is.
well-
I don't know what the right term is, but yeah, it's like a plastic surgeon.
Okay, well either way, it's like a doctor. It's a doctor.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, yes, true.
Yeah. What would I say?
I'm just thinking,
I thought you were hinting at that it was like her father, or like there was some
No,
deeper
no, no.
meaning or something.
No,
That's
it's
why I
just
was
this,
so
you know,
opposed to
I
it.
just think it'd be funny to just be like, she's at a consultation with her oncologist, and it's actually a dentist. It's like, that's a doctor.
Got you.
I just don't think it's that big of a deal.
Well, I think it's a big deal for this book specifically.
Okay. Fine.
Go on.
Go on. Okay. Well, it's based. What would I say that it is? It's like almost like a confession, or just like a not a play-by-play walkthrough, but like she's talking to this doctor about her sexual desires, her upbringing, her relationship with her ex-boyfriend Kay and her former psychiatrist Jason. She talks about her mother, and it's just like, it just feels very confessional. It feels very vulnerable. The writing is very graphic, very funny. But overall, I would just say it's like a very vulnerable monologue.
Yeah. I think that's
by a millennial writer.
I think that's exactly what it is. And
Cheers.
Cheers. Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, I think stream of consciousness is the right. I mean, because the doctor never speaks, right? Dr. Seligman is his name. Although there are moments where it's implied that she's responding to a question that he's asked or something like that, but we never actually hear him speak. We only hear the
There's hints that maybe he's smiling.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So we get
like
glimpses
reacting.
of his reactions, but never actually like the explicit descriptions thereof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an extended monologue, wherein the main character kind of, probes different, like forbidden and kind of transgressive boundaries and lines of what's appropriate, like what's within the limits of possibility and what's within. And she's also kind of abusing the patient-doctor confidentiality agreement in order to feel safe enough to say these things.
I didn't really think
Which
of
is
that.
also
I didn't
just
really think of that.
funny. I didn't think
dimension.
about
That's
that either.
interesting. Yeah.
That's kind of hilarious to me that someone would do
Yeah,
that.
like it's still like bounded within like a formal sort of like rule. I think that like allows her to feel there's some sort of safety catch there.
Yeah, and I think I think it's also interesting because I hadn't really considered that dimension of it, Matt, like the doctor-patient confidentiality sort of situation, creating like an artificial space of comfort or
Therapy
whatever.
almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because and I think that's where I was going to go with it, because I think it's interesting because the opening of the story and like throughout, she references the like actual therapist, the psychotherapist that she had to Jason, who she had to go to because she threatened to kill one of her coworkers with a stapler.
Right.
Which is, we could talk about the precipitating events of that at some point. But when she talks about Jason, she's like goes out of. I guess we don't really know this character's pronouns, right? Maybe we should just go with they, because
That's true. It's not clear. It seems like they are, male identifying, basically.
Yeah, right. Because they're prepping for the transition surgery, but that's never it's never confirmed. So I'll just go with they for the sake of ease.
Sure.
But so they talk a lot about how they would lie to Jason to like kind of gauge his level of like comfort in various situations. So one of the sort of things that they talk to Dr. Seligman about talking to Jason about is, so like the big thing is that important background details, that this is, like the author, someone who's originally German and now living in England, in London. And so they're talking to Jason about all of these elaborate sexual fantasies they have about Hitler.
Yes.
Sort of towards the beginning of the story, and kind of gauging his reactions to, pushing those kinds of extreme boundaries. And Jason, by the narrator's account does not handle it particularly well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to represent a kind of like that negative portrayal of most therapists and psychotherapists of sort of being like gatekeepers of normalcy and kind of just like the agents of mediocrity, right? Like the people that are here to just be like, why don't you chill out, and why don't you just like, why can't you be more like these other people and like just be normal and everything's good, and like you kind of fall in line type of thing, which I think that's the function Jason serves.
Well, and also even like I feel like it was a sort of interesting commentary on like I forget what the example was, but the narrator talks about when they start switching to like other kind of more common or like acceptable forms of like perversion or weird fantasies, he gets a lot more comfortable, and he's like, this I could talk about. Like I can't talk about you like wanting to fuck Hitler, but I'm happy to talk about you like tailing this woman around or whatever, which is another thing that happens.
Right. That happens to also be though when he I don't know. That's when he gets
that's,
more.
Yeah, no,
that's when he gets more nervous.
I feel like there was an in between example. That's escaping me.
I think part of like the commentary seemed a bit to be like, no, Jason's actually pretty chill with like extremely fucked up shit going on within the mind. That's his purview, and that's what he's there to try and mitigate. But as soon as she starts talking about like enacting certain of her or their beliefs or whatever, it's like, yeah, that's when Jason gets freaked out, and he's like, okay, well, let's not stalk people, let's not start blowing people in public bathrooms that are married and all this kind of shit. That's when he's like,
when it's
doesn't
like
really
real
know how
world
to deal
consequences.
with this. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the very essence of like the main character's kind of like statement or struggle within the real world as like a unfortunately embodied individual, is to be like, hey, listen, this is how I prove that it's not all just like figment and whatever,
right?
Or at least partially.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to know kind of where to like, because there's so much the thematic sort of scope of the book is pretty wide. There's a lot of different, like Paul said, there's a lot of talk about family relations. There's a lot of talk about gender and gender identity. There's a lot of talk about national identity, someone who, as a German, sort of coping with the legacy of the Holocaust and the way that that's handled in German culture. And then it's just interspersed with all of these just absurdly like vulgar kind of just, isn't there a line about like a dildo made out of like the hair of like Holocaust victims or something like that? Or like,
yeah, or maybe it was,
like
was
wrapped in
horsehair.
one. Oh yeah, it was horsehair, but it was from like
horsehair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So clearly, like attempting to provoke, but dealing with these, I don't know, serious fucking topics.
Yeah, the book starts with the Hitler stuff. She's like, or they're like, it tries to grab you, right, with this initial like, this is what we're dealing with. This is the, and what's more gripping and edgy than Hitler? And it's just like, I imagine myself as Hitler delivering my little speeches, but then it immediately dives into the identity stuff of like, and I imagine being insecure about the fact that I didn't look like the people I was describing as the master race, and how, as I advocated for genocide and pogroms, I myself was like dealing with insecurities about who I was. And
right.
That's kind of like the first like extended chunk in the first page or two.
So so here's here's a representative passage from the beginning, and I kind of want to it's just like a page, but I do
what
kind of
page
want to.
you got?
This
What
is page 3, 4 onto the top of 5. Just because I want to give people a sense of the way the book is written and some of these examples.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to say that I felt sorry for Hitler, and it's still not acceptable to wipe out an entire civilization because you feel unhappy in your body and because they represent what you hate about yourself. But it did make me think about his private life, Hitler's every day. Have you ever thought about the Fuhrer in his pajamas, Dr. Seligman? waking up with messy hair, stumbling across the room looking for his slippers. I'm sure some sad person has written a book about his domestic life, but I much prefer to imagine it myself. Books would only find a way to make it dull. I can see the swastika-themed bedsheets, the matching pajamas, everything down in his breakfast bowl. I saw those once in Poland in one of those weird antique shops entirely dedicated to the memorabilia of their tormentors, where they were selling bowls and plates with tiny swastikas at the bottom. It almost felt like some sort of perverted Barbie universe where if you saved long enough, you could buy a whole new life, shiny and matching. I could even imagine little TV spots with a well-oiled Hitler doll on one of those glittering horses, saving a good German woman from the hands of some leering Jew, riding off into the sunset, the race protected and safe. Savvy as they were, when it came to the media, I think the Nazis really missed out on a marketing opportunity there. Imagine all the fun little German children could have with something like a Lego concentration camp called Freudenstadt. Build your own oven, organize your own deportations, and don't forget to conquer enough Lebensraum. They could have gone for an adult line. Aside from all the gloves and lampshades made from skin, they could have had horse-themed butt plugs made from real enemy hair.
Oh, okay, real enemy hair.
Yeah, but I guess that ship has sailed now. I don't mean to offend you, Dr. Seligman, especially now that you have your head between my legs, but don't you think there's something kinky about genocide? And I feel like that's sort of like the mission, like one of the mission statements of the book. That's right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just sort of, again, like putting it right in your face that like, all right, this is where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult to talk about, like, I mean, because there are so many themes, and because the narrator is like going through sexual reassignment surgery, you can't just look at it from like the perspective that I originally took, because you don't kind of find that out till like later on in the book. But right. At first I was just thinking that it seems to be just like a very powerful, like, anti-patriarchal sexual thing for women, just like say like the darkest, deepest, sexually weird thing possible from a woman's perspective. Even it's not, but whatever. But
Paul's like, I know exactly what that is. The darkest, deepest thing possible.
But I mean, I think that's part of the reason why it could come across as being so graphic, is like if the author is a woman, and it's like it I think that shows a lot about how you are as a reader too. Is like, would it be as shocking if it was written by a man? And I think that's partially her point, is that like, it's trying to be edgy and gruff, but is it more edgy and gruff and graphic because it was not written by a man?
Yeah, and I think that there's a pretty obvious like. Contrast text, right? Which is Philip Roth's Portnoy's Complaint, which is a very similar, like sexually explicit, kind of, shock value novel, which is also told via a monologue, right?
Right, to a therapist.
Yeah. So like that seems to me to be the obvious sort of reference point in the history of literature. What was that book? Like late 60s, 70s or something like that?
I don't know.
I'll look it up.
It was definitely shocking, when, when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the person that
69, which is a nice year for Portnoy's.
Okay.
For Portnoy's to come out.
Pretty sick. Yeah, I've actually never read that book though. I don't. Have you?
No, I haven't actually read the book, but I know the conceit.
Yeah, and I think the other person that Katharina herself was like kind of influenced by deeply, and I imagine many German writers like now, one of these figures that looms large was Bernhardt, Thomas Bernhardt, who
she talks about Bernhardt in a couple interviews, doesn't she?
Yeah, and like I forget which books she was specifically talking about, but anyway, the kind of the being bound up in the mind of one character and subjected basically to this concentrated monologue where you're kind of suffocated by this person's often pretty like negative and sometimes perverted and just disturbed but maybe not, kind of brain.
And of course, the other like major thematic connection to Bernhard is that Bernhard deeply despised his home country of Austria.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that, we talked about that when we talked about Correction, when we did our episode on that book. And that's also a theme in this book. It's, I don't think it's not as, the narrator's feelings towards Germany are not as caustic as Bernhard gets towards Austria. I don't think quite. But it's
I don't know. They're pretty not happy.
No, yeah, it's true.
She even described herself like I guess Bernhard got called something in German. I can't remember the name. It's like, but it was like Nestbesmercher, like bird that fouls the nest from which it was issued and all that kind of stuff. It has a fun German word like Neust. Neustsmerch or something like that. I can't do it.
Yeah,
I wish I could.
Some
of the obscenities in German are really fun. I wish I could remember more. There are a couple in here.
Yeah. Well, and I think so, like just thinking through the Bernhard connection a little bit more, obviously like the feelings of the narrator towards Germany are very sort of, you're right, Matt. Like it is pretty negative in terms of specifically the way that Germany has sort of, and I know nothing about contemporary German culture. That's just a sidebar for me, but that the way that they have handled the legacy of the Holocaust, right? And the way that they teach it, the way they think about Jewish people in their day-to-day life. And I don't know, I thought it was really fascinating to read Volckmer's take on those issues.
Yeah, that was the first like overarching question that I had was like how because I the press around this book was that initially didn't have a German publisher and that it was too shocking and too scandalous to be that the German publishers wouldn't touch it. And then I saw some critiques where like maybe this was a kind of a more of a PR stunt that just no one really liked it and wanted to publish it and whatever. And it I don't know, I wasn't able to like parse that, but I was overarchingly just curious because I imagine it is some sort of silence, some lacuna in a general like sort of self-understanding of Germany. Like it must be. Like that makes sense to me that that's true, but yeah, like what that feels like and how that manifests culturally and in art and stuff, I don't know.
Right, and I think like the main sort of thrust of the narrator's critique, as far as I read it, was that it's sort of become a obviously there's a ton of national guilt, and that manifests in, things like curriculum in public schools and things like that. I think she relates one anecdote where they like had to learn some song in Hebrew or Yiddish or something and sing it in school, right? But the argument of the narrator is that creates this figure of, quote unquote, the Jew, like capital T, capital J, that actually winds up hampering their ability to like interact with actual Jewish people in their day-to-day lives. And like, one of the things that she says, or that they say at some point when they're talking to Dr. Seligman, is that like, okay, here, I found this passage. So this is on 21. But even today, Dr. Seligman, for a German, a living Jew is quite an excitement, something that no one prepared us for when we were growing up. We were only used to dead or miserable Jews, staring at us from endless gray photographs or from somewhere far away in exile, never smiling, and us forever in their debt. And our one way of making it up to you was by turning you into magical creatures with fairy dust coming out of every hole, with superior intellects, curious names, and infinitely more interesting biographies. In our imagination, no Jew could ever be a cab driver, and there was even a page in my theology book dedicated to famous Jews. And this is the part that I just referenced. And in our music classes, we had to sing Hava Nagila in Hebrew, Dr. Seligman. 30 German children and not a single Jew in sight, and we sang in Hebrew to make sure that we remained denazified and full of respect. But we never mourned. If anything, we performed a new version of ourselves, hysterically non-racist in any direction and negating difference wherever possible. Yeah.
Part of me was like, because obviously that sounds very similar. There's parallels in the U.S., right, of like racial sensitivity training, implicit bias training, or subconscious bias training, all this kind of stuff. The kind of hysterical non-racism or whatever. Which in and of itself ends up backfiring in a weird way. But, like, I have to take Volckmer's word for it, right? Doesn't it seem kind of... I don't know. Something about that was like, is that really true? That, like, the same vibes go on for, like, just Jewish people? They're that identifiable and, like, I don't know. I guess it's true, but...
No, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. Like, I really don't know how to kind of evaluate it in terms of like a picture of contemporary German society, right? Because I don't live there. I have no idea.
Someone please, if there's any
podcast, any German listeners,
if there's a German denazification podcast out there,
yeah,
but yeah, or German history podcast.
More, maybe that's better.
Pedagogy. German contemporary pedagogy. I don't fucking know.
If many different podcasts could converge to give us a full spectrum view of German culture right now, that would be so nice.
That would be perfect. But then, of course, like the sort of apotheosis of this towards the end of the book is where she starts, because Seligman is Jewish, and she starts talking about how like the kind of like irony or confluence of him giving to the narrator a Jewish cock, which is a phrase that appears a lot in the latter quarter of the book.
It was going to be in the title and then was removed.
Yes, right. I did read that.
Well, what was the title going to be?
Like The Appointment, Story of a Jewish Cock or something like that.
Yeah, that was like the original title.
Yeah. And they removed it, much like the foreskin that could have been. Oh, thank you. Thank you. We need more.
I know. That was the first one, dude. We got the soundboard up.
Yeah, I forgot until just now.
You're on the ones and twos over there, dude. I found it strange that, the main character, like, they were delivering... the complicating factor is them delivering it to kind of the bowed head of a Jewish doctor,
yes,
who you never get to hear from at any point, and is still kind of an absence in their presence or whatever, which felt like a complicating critique of the main character's own ability to also, even in this confessional manner and trying to be the most themselves and the most revealed, literally like genitals on display, saying their deepest recessed secrets and all this kind of shit, still like this person doesn't speak. This person is kind of getting it sort of just piled on them as like a victim in a way.
Is the narrator trauma dumping?
Yeah, that's my question, and I think they are.
I think it's a good question, and I mean I think the way you put it is so accurate that Seligman is this shaping absent present throughout the whole thing, and yeah. Paul, what do you think? Is the narrator trauma dumping on poor?
I don't totally know what that means, but is funny.
Okay,
and I kind of get it just because I understand the words.
Yeah,
but what does it mean?
Just like you find someone who's like a good interlocutor, or a good recipient rather for all of your woes,
Well, yeah.
Just because
and
partially,
I kind of do.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I just mean, I feel like trauma dumping, whatever. It's like usually it then goes into the emotional labor category of the other offense, and like it's somebody who either has to kind of sit there and take it, or is for whatever reason captured or a mark for that kind of thing, who is like just willing to sit there and listen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Seligman represents like not only a personal like connection with her. She feels really comfortable around him, seeming, we don't totally know if he feels comfortable around her or not, because he
Yeah.
kind of just has to like do his job or whatever, or they. I'm sorry, I keep misgendering. But
I don't
I
think
think
it's
it's like
actually
a-
clear. By the way,
I didn't think it was clear either.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. So I was just
Yeah.
going with the.
But I think it's like a societal catharsis for her too. She looks at Seligman. I keep saying Segelman in my head. Which, I know it's Seligman. But she looks at him as like a just like someone who she can point to societally, if that makes sense. Like he's almost like a societal
an
vessel.
avatar. Yeah.
Avatar. Yeah. So there's comfort there in him.
Yeah. And of course, like the other kind of dimension to it, just talking about Seligman a little bit, is that for the narrator, he also represents sort of, the sort of traditional gendered life experience that the narrator was never able to have. So there's a lot of discussion about all of the pictures of Seligman's family that he has on the desk that the narrator can see, right?
Yeah.
Was there a numerological significance to 7, the 7 frames?
I don't know, because there was
I never followed up on that myself.
No, I didn't either, because that's highlighted like a number of times.
Yeah.
Because it's like his wife and then like 6 children or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that means anything.
I mean, I know it
specific.
has like a religious connotation, but
You would know that.
Yeah. But no.
I'm looking. I just typed in 7 in Nazi, and it says Hitler's own 7 dwarfs.
Is that
that
the actual Snow White movie?
you gonna follow
Anyway.
up on that?
Anyway.
Nope. I'm just reading headlines over here. No, I thought maybe there would be like some sort of definitive answer to like maybe a connection between the Nazi regime and the number 7. But no.
Yeah. But yeah, I wasn't sure because it was brought up a lot. But I mean, just as a general matter, like it seems to me that Seligman again sort of occupies this, ethereal kind of fantastical creature role, both as a Jew for the narrator as a German person, but also as a sort of cis man for the narrator as a trans person, right? Like it's these floating, ideals, both like obviously very differently constructed historically.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that make any sense?
The narrator's literally just trying to create like almost a photographic negative of themselves. Like they're just trying to invert every aspect. Not every, but like the ones that they regard as important. Right, like gender, and then like I guess religious minority affiliation. I don't know. The number 7 also I just looked up does in numerology sort of generally represent the quest for knowledge, which I think actually works in the themes here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I found a passage. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I also think that like it's it's kind of hinted at that there's not like the narrator's a little bit, I would say, envious of the ease in which Seligman has been able to live and not worry about all the things that the narrator has had to worry about, like wanting to have a penis. I love the scene where like the father is in bed and the covers are pulled down, or he exposes himself or whatever, and the
He always
narrator
slept in the buff.
yeah, it's kind of a creepy scene, but the narrator like kind of, they don't say that they're envious, they just, or like attracted sexually or anything. You kind of think that's where the scene is going. It's more just like they just have a realization like, I want one of those. And they think they can go to like a store and buy one. It's like really,
Yes.
it's really funny. But I mean, that's one of the strengths of the book though, is it puts you in the mind of someone who is potentially trans anyway, and like the struggle between not really feeling like they're in their correct body. That's just like it's a very straightforward and vulnerable and depiction of that, which I think is very useful to read
Yeah.
as single or not single cis white men.
Also single.
Yeah, don't,
I am
you
single.
can put that in there. It's one pixel clear resolution image.
That was a
of you.
Freudian slip.
I guess we might also flag at this point, just because you kind of brought it up, Paul, that the author Volckmer is. I could not find any information online about whether the Volckmer herself is trans or not. I don't believe so. So just whatever. Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
If anything.
As of now, March 22nd, 2022.
We don't know the answer to that question.
We don't know.
No.
But I have a couple passages that I wanted to read just on the topic again of the way the narrator sort of constructs Seligman in relation to themselves. So this is on 30 to 31. And she's talking about Seligman's wife. Is that her in the picture over there on your desk, or is that your mother, Dr. Seligman? With some men, it's hard to tell who their heart belongs to, but I imagine you are one of those happily married men with iron pajamas who can never imagine not being happy. And plus, you are a member of a heavily persecuted minority, so I'm sure you have lots of children. They are your form of rebellion. I get that. It must have been such a triumph for you to get your wife pregnant and think of all the people who tried to not make this possible. So in a way, you are like me and think of Hitler when you orgasm. It was just like,
Right.
Oh my God.
And that was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, the main character is probably projecting incredibly hard. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
Okay,
I
but I wanted
think
to show you. I
You had the same
circled this
thing?
entire
Paul's
page.
the
Yeah.
same. It is super funny, and I felt like it was such a good representation of that. What I interpreted as like a projection on their part, like because I feel like another one of these things that's sort of, you know, one of the few actually unspoken things about this book is like
There's not a lot.
is that tension between what is like the point of first of all, what is the point of this extent of confession? What is the point of keeping wounds fresh, which is part of the whole like Holocaust history thing in Germany, and you know, like how does your own personal history, like when is it useful to put to bear on people in order to like to keep them aware of human potential and also human failure, and when is it just this kind of unfair imposition that helps neither you nor the person you're communicating to? You know, like when is communication and all this kind of identity revelation stuff I felt like, you know, not necessarily helpful, or just on you and not really on another identity that you're sort of trying to commune with.
So the other passage that I wanted to read, just because I think it follows up on that point pretty well, Matt, is that, you know, the what?
Play
I
the
made the
sound again?
Chewbacca sound, but it wasn't really loud or clear. Turn my speaker up a little bit.
So
Yeah.
So the other passage where I think like that question of projection and sort of like fairness, this is one of the instances where I thought it became like most clear, and the various constructions of Seligman throughout the narrator's kind of like discourse. This is on 36 to the top of 37. I wish I could see the other frames on your desk from here. 7, Was that?
Oh shit! Sorry, I was
like-
testing. I was testing when I thought I muted myself. Oh my god! I'm sorry.
Like, I was like, that is I was like, that is
testing.
not Chewbacca.
You're playing.
I really
that's from
thought I had myself muted. I'm sorry.
That's Ken Long from Community. I know that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
God.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Sorry, Gabe. Read your.
no, it's good. Let's see. Okay. I wish I could see the other frames on your desk from here. 7, I think. I am sure they contain pictures of your children and maybe even your grandchildren. I imagine that you got married when you were quite young and that your children followed your good example and always ironed their clothes, and that you have regular family gatherings where you're all very loving and happy, where even the occasional tragedy is part of the narrative. Would you forgive me if I was your child, Dr. Seligman? And I feel like that's really like where that kind of like projective break happens, where she directly addresses him and asks him like, would you forgive me if I was your child? Like obviously creating this image of Seligman in contrast to her own parents, who we haven't really talked about yet, maybe in the Patreon, and her grandfather, who plays a very important late role in the story.
Yeah, a little quick reveal suddenly.
Yeah,
their parents don't, I don't know, like overbearing mom, kind of detached father. I actually didn't get too much from them. There was a weird, to me it felt like there was a weird lack of kind of plumbing the depths of the family, and like
I feel like we get a bit about the mom, but not so much the father.
Yeah, like a disappointed and overbearing mother who is like seemed to emphasize a kind of like particular old-fashioned feminine archetype that she was just implanting on her daughter.
Yeah, but in the book that Gabe and I have, there's like an interview segment, and Volckmer talks about like how she hopes people pick up on the relationship between the mother and daughter in the book, because she actually thinks of the mother-daughter relationship as being like heavily domineered by father figures, and like especially, you know, we're the same age as her, and mothers that are our mother's ages, they have like something in their personalities that were developed and, you know, bombarded by father type figures that made him a certain way. And like I think that actually is pretty interesting to me, is that like the relationships between mothers and daughters can be a little bit tainted and disrupted by society, and that's like,
well, particularly by
tragic.
Yeah, like you said earlier on, like talking about like some of the big themes, like feminism and like the patriarchy's, I guess, influence on women's self-perception and identity, and how that warping factor echoes through the ages, you know, to the point where you have this main character who's like transitioning to be male. And that's part of like the confusion is like, you know, I would say one of the big question marks is like, is this I don't know if this is a spicy take, but like, is this a like genuine, like desired, like sexual reassignment for like a trans person, or is this a symbolic gesture? Like, I think that is actually a question mark that is intentionally there, and not just like a novel about like a trans person. I
think you're totally right, Matt. And I think the thing that really brought that question home to me is, and I think it is a question, but I think part of what brought that idea into the fore for me is at the end, where she talks about her like stillborn brother, right? Mm-hmm. Who she ultimately winds up taking the name of. Emil? Is that
Emil.
Right? Emil?
Yeah.
Elliot? Emil.
I don't...
Elliot.
I really thought it was Elliot. Emil sounds more correct.
And
it's Emil.
And she goes
it's Emil, okay.
into a lot of like phenomenological detail about feeling like Take it away from Paul.
Oh no, he's too powerful.
Yeah, he's too strong. His power level's over 9,000 right now. But she goes into a lot of phenomenological detail about how they feel that their like new life that they're gaining from this surgery is they view it as like a reincarnation of their brother, their like never born brother, and that taking his name is a way of giving him a life that he was never able to have. And there's an elaborate backstory with this about their grandparents and a church and this weird little church machine, like a little coin operated like forgiveness machine that has Jesus like come out on a little like thing and do a little dance and like you're
Yeah.
forgiven or whatever. It's a really
Yeah.
really funny little backstory. But I felt like that was a very, very interesting way to frame this whole experience that the narrator is undergoing as like the reincarnation of a never born man brother.
Yeah. I think it's just I think it's another instance of memory, because I think the novel like scales between the individual and their own struggle to create an identity and all the what is a useful struggle, what is a what are you bounded by fate and by circumstance and by biology and all this kind of shit, and then it scales up from the individual to an entity like a nation state, and the commonalities between those two are not, but I think the one of the commonalities is just memory, right? Because it's comprised of people with memories and how they deal with memories and how that manifests into an identity, the continuity of those memories. So like a dead brother and like being both, that's like the individual, it seems, version of that same idea of like a tragedy or a death on a mass scale.
Yeah, and I also
for
think,
a nation.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think that like what you said about, and we're rapidly approaching the hour here, so we may have to save some of this discussion. We haven't even talked about Kay. We haven't talked about her Holocaust train operating grandfather. So plenty more to talk about after the jump here. But what I just wanted to say on that point, Matt, was, I think at the end of the day, you talked about the scaling up of identity, like from the individual to something like a nation state. It seems to me that like one of the central questions that this book is asking or engaging with is about what aspects of our identities are malleable and changeable and which ones are not. Because Volckmer goes to, mentions a number of times, or has the narrator mention that like, I'm German, I can never change that. That's always part of my identity and my background, while at the same time undergoing or beginning the process of undergoing this procedure that is changing another very important aspect of their identity, right? Gender.
Right.
And so it's like this, like national identity and gender identity are set almost at like two ends of a spectrum. One, which is sort of immutable and untouchable, and one which is, at the very least more malleable.
Well, it feels like trying to separate the dichotomy, the Nazi dichotomy of blood and soil.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's interesting.
Right, like blood and soil. Okay. Okay, that was good.
All right, that was good. Paul gets to keep the soundboard.
Was that the only good one up to until this point?
No, they really are a great comical device.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I have to learn the board,
Yeah,
I just
really,
got
become
it before
one with the
before
board.
this episode. I just got it. So.
It's like playing an instrument, really.
It is really.
Resistance is futile. Become one.
I feel like a DJ.
But yeah, that whatever. Like that synonymous kind of phrase, that fascistic kind of phrase is. I feel like there is an attempt to pry those apart in a way.
Yeah, I think that's totally an important like dynamic of the reading of this book. I mean, of course, the other half of that, though, is that there are aspects of the blood half that you can't change. For example, your parents, and your familial relations. And I think that that's something that the narrator feels very acutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, as we said, there's a lot of stuff we haven't talked about. We haven't talked about Kay. There's a couple more passages that I want to read, because I also just want to say that there are moments of like really beautiful writing in this, and really kind of like it's not all just like vulgar jokes or like whatever.
No.
which I think is a lot of the passages that we've read so far. So anyway, we'll get to all of that in the second half of the show, which you can find at patreon.com/spinecrackers. For as little as $2 a month, you can subscribe to that, hear the full discussions, and be able to join in the discussion on our Discord, which is
Use your inherited Nazi gold even
That's
to
right.
purchase a
That's
subscription. We don't ask questions.
Use your crypto Nazi currency.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, all currency is accepted. Yeah, that's great. We have a lot of other videos and stuff up there. I just put up a video yesterday about Blood Meridian, which, speaking of fascists, just kidding. Shout out to my BM fans.
Yeah. Gabe is 30% kidding.
Yeah.
That's a correct percentage.
Yeah, it's about 30%. Yeah. Anyway,
I actually like being a little bit late.
you're getting into the groove. You're getting into
No,
the
this is
groove.
good. I can feel you settling in.
Yeah.
It's good.
So again, patreon.com/spinecrackers. So with a few minutes left here before the hour, we need to move into
Let's blitzkrieg through this.
I was gonna try to do the song. That was funny.
So what house is this motherfucker in?
Here's one thing I can say: Hitler was a Slytherin.
The ultimate Voldemort of our time.
No one knows what we're actually doing yet. We didn't
Okay,
describe the.
Sorry. Take it away, Paul.
Well, this is the part of the show where we. This is the best part because we love talking about Harry Potter, and we can finally do it, and we can sort the characters in the novel into Harry Potter houses.
And it's called We Just Did Read Another Book, motherfuckers.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
All right.
So I think there's only a few characters probably that we can do. The narrator. Can we
Probably.
Can we really?
Seligman, no. I don't think Seligman can be.
Yeah, I don't think
Kay,
we can do Seligman.
probably.
Kay, who we haven't talked about at all yet. That's gonna have to wait.
So maybe let's just do the main character then. And
Yeah.
maybe Kay can be a surprise in the next half.
Yeah. We'll get to Kay's house later, who is the romantic interest in the novel, or the ex-romantic interest. All right, so let's get into this. Narrator, what fucking house does this person go in?
This is actually one of the most difficult ones, right?
Yeah, this is.
It's always interesting when like a stream of consciousness style novel is actually really difficult to house someone. It's like you're only getting their direct voice, but I walked away thinking like I have no idea.
Well, you know why? Because we've been given in a way the full spectrum of a person's character in a lot of ways, and so it's kind of every house, isn't it?
Oh shit!
Don't shatter the illusion.
The contrivance of the houses. I'm sorry.
Mind blown.
I'm gonna go ahead and say. Ravenclaw, because I feel like amongst all of the profundity and also just sort of like perversion and dreck, there's like a genuine curiousness and a kind of interrogative, confrontational spirit there, which I identify as Ravenclaw.
Yeah, I think that's pretty persuasive. The sort of dialogic sort of approach of the narrator, although of course, like, it's not really a dialogue, it's a monologue, which I don't know what the house alignments of dialogue and monologue are, but
And a question for another time.
Yeah.
maybe.
But yeah, I'm inclined to say Ravenclaw myself, because this is a person who's interested in kind of analyzing people, analyzing society, analyzing themselves, trying to gain, some sense of truth in their identity in their day-to-day life.
Right.
So yeah, to me, that's the Ravenclaw. I think Paul's muted.
Paul, you're muted.
Sorry, I was testing my soundboard while I was listening.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Gryffindor because
Yeah.
I think it takes a Gryffindor to suck cocks of random strangers, basically.
True, which does happen.
You gotta be fucking brave to do that shit. So
buy
on that
that.
fact alone, I'm going straight Gryffindor.
All right.
That's fair.
And
Straight?
Gryffindors can be wildly curious, as we know if you've read Harry Potter and you know the character of Hermione.
Yeah.
True.
Hermione is super smart and curious.
That's very true. All right. Well, I think that was a productive discourse. Let's talk about the Scrabble words that we found in this book, which are the words that were either new to us or interesting, or that just would be good for Scrabble. Paul, you have one?
My word, I'm not totally sure if my word is a real word, but I picked it because it's
Dude,
also the name
it's
of one
in
of
a
my
book.
favorite.
It has to be a real word.
Well, I think it might be a proper noun. It's Shlomo, which is also one of my favorite artists, musical artists.
It's a name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like
We'll take it.
It's in the Urban Dictionary. Someone who is really lazy usually describes someone who is chilling at home, wearing pajamas all day, being really slow and with everything. So it's like
Weird.
It's entering into maybe actual
Like a slang term.
vocabulary. It's a slang term as it is, but it's also a proper noun.
And yeah, it's a
Shlomo.
common Jewish name, right? Or maybe not
Nice.
super common anymore. But.
SHLOMO, right?
SCHLOMO.
Oh, there's a C. Okay.
All right, Matt, what's yours?
Mine was Veruca, which is why I said the wart thing.
What? What does that mean? Like Veruca Salt
From
Willy
Charlie and the
Wonka?
Chocolate Factory?
Well, that's the joke of her name. Her name is literally wart salt. A Veruca is a planter wart.
Oh shit!
It's like another name for a planter's wart, or just some sort of like unbidden wart-like growth. Veruca, VERUCA. Nice letters. Yeah. So yeah, Veruca Salt is a joke about that she's a nasty wart.
You learn something new every day. I had no idea.
See, I'm so happy
did
to
not know
have
that
done
either.
that for everybody.
Wow. Thank you.
So my word was hoopoe, HOOPOE, which apparently is a type of like brightly plumed bird.
Nice.
And yeah, that's it.
Sounds cute.
Yeah, it's in the context she's describing her mother. Yeah.
All right.
All right. That leaves only one thing.
Dibs not.
Okay, fine. So this is the segment where we give the book a final score evaluation out of 5. So my experience with this book, I think already we've talked, like just the discussion we've had so far points to the fact that there are a lot of very sort of it's wide-ranging thematically, and there's a lot of stuff and sort of depth there to plumb. And as I said, a lot of which we haven't even sort of touched on yet. But I started reading it, and I was sort of thinking, like, this is really funny. All of these, like, Hitler references. Not that I think Hitler references are automatically funny.
Okay, Gabe. Yeah.
Not that I think Hitler references are automatically funny, but the way that it's deployed in the context of the characters is artful. And I thought, whatever. Throughout the book, there were moments where it started to wear thin for me, that the jokes were not quite hitting anymore. Anytime you do a stream of conscious monologue, it seems to me that the demands that places on you as a writer are very high. And I'm not entirely sure that Volckmer rose to that particular occasion fully, in terms of keeping the tenor, keeping the humor, keeping the sort of thematic resonance. I do think she brought it home at the end, more or less. I think some of my favorite passages at the book are towards the end, the passage about her grandfather that we'll talk about. I thought the whole couple pages about the snow falling in the Arctic was a really like lovely metaphor that I want to read later. So I feel like it kind of sagged for me maybe in the middle a bit, where the joke started to wear thin and it wasn't quite hitting the same way. But then it came back for me at the end. I think this is a book that I think people should read this book. I'll put it that way. It's something that may not sound up your alley, but given what we've discussed, but I don't know. It kind of creeps up on you. It'll make you laugh in ways that you never expected and might feel ashamed of laughing at afterwards. But I don't know. I enjoyed it. I think that I look forward to what Volckmer does in the future. I think it's like a 3.17 for me.
All right. Yeah, I'll just say ditto to some of the stuff Gabe said, especially, about it kind of creeping up on you and some striking passages, especially in like humorous ones for the most part were the strongest ones for me. Again, it started to wear thin and be somewhat unenjoyable. I do think that some of the more beautiful imagery with the snow and all that was reserved for the end. Very small portion of the novel, though, and one that didn't feel entirely earned or in place. I didn't really enjoy this novel. I thought it was
My trolling has worked.
Yeah, Paul got me.
With the fart noise.
Paul did get me. I mean, like, it's like we can have a good discussion, and I like talking about the book right now.
It's because we're amazing geniuses.
Yeah.
No, I think it's
White male amazing geniuses.
It's obviously Volckmer's doing that. This has been inspired, but by and large, a lot of these like connections felt a little confused and sort of more gestured at than like robustly interrogated, and there was so much potential here that I felt was just kind of like not realized, and there was a lot of sophomoric and pretty banal and edgy observations about like society and how it's shitty and all this kind of stuff that I just like. It just made me roll my eyes, and I'm gonna have to give it a 2.6.
I'm gonna jump in here and downgrade my score slightly because I think I was overlooking, obviously because we didn't read them or talk about them, but there are a lot of eye-rolly moments. There are a lot of very like kind of like
I'll read one for the Patreon
okay.
segment. But
some sigh-inducing like undergrad level stuff that
like we're all liars and we're contradicting ourselves and I don't know. It's
so
like
I'm downgrading to a flat 3.
Okay.
Nice.
2.6 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta appreciate her. This is her first novel, and it's like, it to me, I was kind of having callbacks to John Darnielle and Universal Harvester. I just feel like someone's first attempt at something.
That's not his first novel, but
oh, it's not. But I just okay. Well, shame on him. Not on me. I'm a perfect person. Shame on him.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that really lacked for me with this novel was just like, like Universal Harvester, I just feel like it needed more depth. There needed to be something else subjectively going on. And there is a lot going on like interpersonally, but I just feel like for the stream of consciousness thing to work, there has to be many more layers. Like Sleep Has His House, I would say, is kind of stream of consciousness, but it's like so out there and there's so much to it that it really works as a novel. Like to me, I almost read this more as a monologue than a novel.
Just on that point, because I thought of it, I think in the end interview that's included in this book, Volckmer goes out of her way to say that she thought of it as like a stage thing almost when she was writing it.
She
and
wants
like,
it to be on stage.
Influenced by the theater in a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, it is still presented as a novel. It's in a book form. So, but yeah, I don't know. I found it really funny. I found her potential of writing a good novel to be there for sure. Not that I didn't like this. I did like it, but I found it the sexual stuff I didn't find too out there because I'm such a perverted human being. So I was just mostly just laughing at it. But overall, I would say it lacked other layers that I would like to see in a full-fledged novel. So that's my biggest criticism. There are like the kind of quippy millennial fiction writer type jokes that, and there's the only other one we can compare it to really is Luster, and there was like so many more in Luster. Like there's only a few I would say in this one. But I do want like every writer to not do that for the most part, But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I would be very apt to read more of hers if she decides to read more or write more. I think it's definitely worth reading. Especially, I think it's actually worth reading for people of our age, even maybe. Or younger, or I don't know. Maybe that's kind of a weird statement, but I just feel like it is worth reading in our society. Just like read it, get a different perspective.
Where we live,
a different human being.
We live in one.
So, a society. All right, I'll stop talking. 3.5.
All right, nice.
All right.
Well, as has already been alluded to, we got more to say about this book after the jump, second half of the show. Patrons only. Join the club. Come on. It's worth it. It's fun. What should we call it? We should call it something. Like everyone's got like like the Mickey Mouse Club, you know what I mean? Like the Spine Gang.
Spine Gang. No, we gotta make it sound. People are paying to get in. We gotta make it sound like luxurious. The Champagne Room.
Come into
something like that.
Come into Dr. Seligman's velvet office.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Patreon.com/Spinecrackers, Instagram Spinecrackers, Twitter Spinecrackers, Facebook Spinecrackers.
And for those who paid, we'll see you in the VIP lounge.
That's right, baby.